today I'm driving through the Colorado Rockies, basically from Fort Collins to Grand Junction. And right now I'm in Rocky Mountain National Park. It's an area basically just northwest of Denver, not too far, maybe like an hour northwest of Denver. And it's in the Front Range of the Rocky Mountains, so that's the easternmost slope, basically, of the Southern Rockies, which is a portion of the Rocky Mountain chain in Colorado. So it's a very, very beautiful area. It is the end of September and the aspens are turning yellow and orange and everything, and I can actually hear elk bugling in the distance. And this area right here is called Sheep Lakes. It's on the eastern side of the national park, and I've actually been here before. When I was 11 years old, I came with my dad to this area. And yeah, so this is pretty familiar. When I was here in the summertime with my dad, though, there were all sorts of bighorn sheep in the meadow here by the lakes. Right now there's none. You actually aren't supposed to walk in these meadows between the hours of 5 p.m. and 10 a.m. in the fall time. So this time of year, but it's before 5 p.m. right now, so it's okay to wander. But yeah, it's a very scenic area for sure. And the main road through the park climbs up into the mountains and into the alpine tundra, so that's where we're going to be heading next. So one of the downsides of the national parks is that they tend to be busier, obviously because they're more well known, and that brings some challenges. I just had a concerned Karen yell at me for being in the meadow, even though I was following all the rules. The meadows have prohibited entry between the hours of 5 p.m. and 10 a.m. from September 1st through October, and I wasn't breaking that rule. It is not between the hours of 5 p.m. and 10 a.m. So she was yelling at me from like across the field, like, you're not supposed to be down there. It's like, okay, read the sign before you pretend like you're some sort of authority. So that's kind of annoying. And you know, you shouldn't, like, I'm not gonna let her tell me what to do, but it's just annoying because that happens in these busier places. And by the way, that lady was just some tourist with the camera. She was not an employee or a park ranger or anything. I would listen to somebody, you know, who was actually in a position of authority like that. But yeah, these are public lands that are set aside for the enjoyment of the American people and people all across the world. So, you know, follow the rules, read the rules and follow the rules, and don't listen to people that have no idea what they're talking about. So this is Trail Ridge Road. It's the paved road that goes over the crest of the Front Range here in Colorado, and it goes up thousands and thousands of feet. The Rocky Mountains in Colorado are very tall. They don't necessarily have high relief. Like, they're not huge from mountain peak to valley floor, just because there's lots of foothills and there's a gradual kind of incline over the entire state of Colorado. But it's still very high. So I think we're going to go probably to like 12,000 feet. I'm not exactly sure. But that's very high. When I was young, I used to be very sensitive to altitude, and it's probably because I grew up and lived in Minnesota at an elevation of 1,000 feet. So when my dad took me here when I was 11, oh, there's a deer. So when my dad took me here when I was 11, we went up this road, and we were also seeing family friends in Breckenridge the same day. So we drove this road, and then we drove to Breckenridge, lots of winding roads at very high elevation. I got so elevation sick. Once I got out of the car, I puked all over their driveway, right at their feet. And then after we went inside, I puked all night in their toilet while they were having Famous Dave's or something, like ribs, barbecue and stuff. And I was just sitting in the in the bathroom all night, basically. But once we got back to Boulder at a much lower elevation, I felt a lot better. And I ate all of the peaches that we had forgotten to give them as like a gift, the Colorado peaches. And the peaches were so good. I still remember that. But my stomach was empty. Yeah, I was very sensitive to the elevation back then, but now I live and work at 7,000 feet. So I'm very much acclimated to elevation and it doesn't bother me. I can still feel it when I go high, but it doesn't make me sick like it once did. Nice drive. Nice aspen, willow. We're at about 9,600 feet above sea level right now, so I'd consider this solidly sub-alpine. There's actually some nice color on the tundra. The tundra plants turning red. Looks very nice. You're currently at 2 miles above sea level, so that's nearly 11,000 feet. This here's probably where the road gets closed during the winter time, because this road is only open during the not snowy times of year. Just above Rainbow Curve, the viewpoint called Rainbow Curve. Getting into the tundra now. So we've reached the tree line now at over 11,000 feet. Pretty much at the top of the mountains here. The last time I was up here, there were elk on the tundra, but today all I've seen is marmots and ground squirrels. Not that much. And I think the pika the little mouse rabbit creatures, I saw quite a bit in the summertime. I did see a prairie dog town though earlier today in Fort Collins. That was pretty cool. One thing about the Colorado Rockies is that they're generally pretty round. They're not really jagged like a lot of other mountain ranges. Like there's lots of gradual slopes. It's very interesting. Lots of small rocks. They're really just like really, really big hills. And then there's some jagged parts, but overall it's a lot of really just kind of smooth slopes. It's interesting. But the road's in good shape. Smooth road, must be maintained pretty well. I guess in the wintertime they don't have to worry about salt and plowing, which really eats up the road because the road is just closed in the wintertime. But yeah, overall it's a very nice road. Here's a nice hairpin curve, but very wide, very broad road. In most places, at least. Down there is the Kawanichi River Valley. I think that's what it's called. I remember seeing moose down there with my dad when I was 11 years old. We also just passed the Continental Divide, so that means that all the rivers that drain on this side of the divide flow toward the Pacific Ocean, and all the rivers that drain on the other side of the divide flow to the Atlantic. So there's some pretty big rivers that start in Colorado that end up in the oceans, like the Arkansas River. That's a long river that gets into the Mississippi River. The Platte rivers, those rivers eventually join the Missouri and then the Mississippi. There's the Rio Grande that starts in Colorado and flows south through New Mexico and then forms the U.S.-Mexico border in Texas. And then there's the Colorado River, of course, probably the most important river that's spawned out of the Colorado Rockies. Well, that's hard to say, but most important for the Southwest at least. And that begins actually in the Rocky Mountain National Park, or at least just in this area, and then it goes through Utah, Arizona, Nevada, California, into the Pacific Ocean. So lots of major rivers that begin as snow melt here in the Colorado Rocky Mountains. So the mountains over there are called the Never Summer Mountains, and I think that's a fantastic name. Whoever named them the Never Summer Mountains, if I were naming places like mountain ranges and things like that, I'd be naming them like that, you know, of that style. I think it's very clever, it sticks with you, it makes sense. That's what I would do. I wouldn't really be naming things after people so much as concepts or like descriptive, like what is it actually like there? Because that's helpful, you know. So this is actually the Kawanichi Valley, I think. I mistakenly called some other valley the Kawanichi Valley earlier. And I don't even know if there's a Kawanichi River. I'm pretty sure it's just the Colorado River. But so anyways, now we're in that valley, the valley that I said I saw moose in when I was 11. So I'm just going to take a walk down to the water here. I think it's the Colorado River. I think. If it's not, then it connects to it. Here's some running water. It's very nice and cool right now. Fall is always an interesting time. It's like the beginning of the end of the year. But in general, it feels very pristine here. It's a very nice place. If only because it's just like pure nature. Colorado is nice. Those are some really bright aspens, and you can just see the leaves shimmering in the basically still air. That's what makes quaking aspen quake, you know? I mean, that's what gives them its name, basically, because they shimmer, they quake at the slightest breeze. It's very cool. This west side of the park is a lot less busy than the east side. It's pretty empty here, actually. I think most people that visit the Rocky Mountain National Park probably visit from Denver, and that's on the east side, so they just go up to the top, probably like the Alpine Visitor Center area, top of Trail Ridge Road, and then just drive back the way they came, rather than come down the west side and do a long loop. But the west side is very pretty. Even though, like, in many ways, you wouldn't really think it's as eye-catching as the east side, just the fact that it's quieter makes it feel a lot more beautiful. It's not just it's not just quaking aspen that turns yellow here in the Colorado Rockies, though. It's also balsam poplar. That's just a relative of the quaking aspen, though. They're all in the poplar family. I think that's the thing. Populus, perhaps. And quaking aspen and balsam poplar are also very common in places like northern Minnesota, you know, other parts of the country as well. Not exclusive to the Rocky Mountains by any means. Actually, the quaking aspen is the most widely distributed tree in the entire continent. Looks like there was a fire up there and it looks pretty recent. Don't remember that the last time I was here, so yeah, and it does look like a fresh burn. So I wonder when that was burned. Probably within the past couple years. A lot of the trees are also blown over. So either there was a blowdown that made them susceptible to burn, or they blew over after they burned. It's hard to say. With the fire here, this area will be really colorful in like 10 to 20 years maybe, just because it provides room for aspen to grow. So all these pines and other conifers are dead, and now the aspen will fill in as the pioneer, and I already can see that in some places. So maybe this was a fire like 3 to 5 years old. I'm not sure, but I do see some young aspen already growing on some of the hillsides. And like I said, this west side of the park here where this fire happened will be very, very nice for fall foliage at some point. So the fire that occurred was in October 2020, so that was exactly 3 years ago. So that makes sense. This is the city of Grand Lake, by the way. Very beautiful. Lots of aspen here in Grand Lake, Colorado, and some of them are red, which is more rare, but it's beautiful. So this is Lake Granby, and this is a really nice lake. Just had to pull over to enjoy the view. Got some elk over here. Funny that the kids are playing, the little elk are chasing each other around and everything.